Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again, barefaced lies. Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Because we wanna where it's all gonna end, yeah. Because you think we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Hey Sean, you got a party. You got that little party going on there. Keep to the left, you can't think right. So everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Because we wanna where it's all gonna end, yeah. Because you think we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Because we wanna where it's all gonna end, yeah. Because you think we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Comrades, you always told us you'd build us all a new Jerusalem, yeah. You talk the talk, but when you walk, you only leave a crooked line there. And you don't see the trouble that's brewing if all you do is just what you're doing.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Is this where you wanna be? Debt and childhood poverty. Oh, somebody set us free from this corrupt kleptocracy. Oh yeah.
Barefaced lies.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise.
fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Labour wants you to believe that if Reform ever got into power, millions of ordinary, law-abiding immigrants who've built their lives here would be rounded up and deported overnight. It's classic Labour scaremongering. They take the most extreme interpretation of a policy, then scream racist and far right to terrify people. If we are honest with everything that Reform have said so far, many of us would actually argue they haven't gone far enough. So we know Reform couldn't and wouldn't deport millions of people who are legally settled here. The logistics, the laws, and basic reality make that impossible. What Reform are really saying, for those of you who bother to read the documents, is that they want tougher rules going forward on who qualifies for settlement. A debate lots of countries are already having. So what we have here is Labour taking a policy debate about the future of immigration and twist it into a horror story about mass deportations. Why? Because they're scared. They are scared of Reform cutting into their vote, scared of losing their grip on the narrative, and scared of admitting that millions of people agree with Reform on immigration. Which is why this isn't at all about protecting migrants. It's about protecting Labour's power. And the easiest way they know how: smear, sneer, and as we all know, fear. A very, very good evening. Sorry, I just stopped because I saw this post out the corner of my eye. Oh, you have no idea, Helen. Absolutely no idea. A very, very good evening to all of you. It is the 28th of September 2025. My name is Rajami, and of course this is one of those Sunday night Reckies at 9 transmissions. I nearly cancelled. I nearly cancelled, I'm afraid. I've got these migraines and I can't shift them, I'll be honest with you. I've got some blood tests tomorrow, so hopefully they get to the bottom of what's up with me. But here I am. I've took some pills, I've washed my face, and the reason I put my jacket on is because when I was washing my face I spilt water all over my t-shirt, and I thought, oh, it looks like I've spilt my tea on it. I haven't. Okay, as always, the work I do is 100% free, so please, if you find it of value, buy me a coffee if you can. Thank you. As always, you know, every week you give me some money, and I'm grateful to you. Thank you as well, Denise. And if you can, super chat if you can, buy me a coffee, at the very least subscribe to Redwall and the Rabble. At the very least subscribe to Redwall and the Rabble. It makes a massive difference. Okay, an update for you would have to start with, I think, this one. The digital ID announcement, of course, it wasn't in the Labour Party manifesto, and it is something very sinister by the back door, and we all know, I think all of us know what these people are up to. And this is the petition. It's at 2,351,000. Of course, all the petition does is that it will be considered for debate. It will no doubt be debated, because the opposition parties will bring it forward anyway. So let's see where we end up with this. But I'm against it. I've spoken out against it, and for someone who's been subject to the tyranny of the state, having a digital ID card terrifies me, because they'll just censor me, they'll take my money, they'll take everything from me, and they'll do the same with you and everyone else. So please, if you haven't signed it yet, and thank you, Callum, that you have, please take a moment to go and sign it. And maybe that's what it is, drinking a couple of pints of water, maybe that's what it is. Okay. I want to start this evening with move on to the interview given by the Prime Minister Keir Starmer to the BBC today, where they've basically sidelined the Conservatives and they've gone after reform, and they've gone after reform on a racist attack. As always, we'll play the evidence so we can make sense of it ourselves. You can make sense of it, I can make sense of it, I'll comment on it, and I've prepared some stuff I'd like to go through with you on. Let me find it. Let me find my headphones. Let's bring it up.
You in?
Well, we've got a lot of hard work to do. We've achieved great things in the first year of the Labour government. We said we would do 2 million extra NHS appointments. We've done 5 million, and confidence in the NHS is going up, so that's a good thing. We said that we'd rolled out childcare. This is childcare from 9 months to 4 years for parents and carers. That's thousands of pounds saved. For children, it's a game changer. I am sick and tired of stories about 4-year-olds arriving in reception, some reading quite well, others virtually in nappies. So we're going to change that and make sure every single child gets to the starting line of education in an equal position. And just this month, we've introduced the Hillsborough Law, which is going to change thousands of lives. We won the order for frigates from Norway. That's £10 billion. That's 15 years of shipbuilding on the Clyde. So there's a lot we've achieved, but we've got to do more. We inherited a complete mess, a broken economy, broken public services. We said we would change that, and I always said that would take time.
And yet,
but I do understand people are frustrated, because if they lived through 14 years of failure, they want change to come more quickly. So I do understand the frustration.
That's a different thing than you admitting that you are in quite a bit of political trouble. The very latest opinion poll suggests if there were an election right now, Labour would have fewer than 100 seats. So how much trouble are you in?
Well, Laura, we won last year in July a mandate to change the country.
How much trouble are you in right now?
I always said that would take time. We will be judged at the next election, quite rightly, on whether we have improved living standards, people feel better off, on whether the public services are better, particularly the NHS, and whether people feel safe and secure in their own community.
But I'm asking you about the situation right now, because there are a lot of people in your own party coming here to Liverpool who really worry about what's been going on. Do you accept that you are in political trouble?
Laura, in politics, there are always going to be comments about leaders and leadership, particularly at times like conference.
There aren't always polls that put the governing party so far behind.
I always focus on what is it we're trying to achieve. What are we delivering? Just this month, the Hillsborough Law. That is so important. You were with me at the Liverpool Echo.
And we've discussed that already.
Righting an injustice that's gone on for 36 years, but also changing the position for thousands of people in the future.
And you've mentioned that already. So let's talk about what else you're going to be talking about in the next few days. You've already admitted many people in the public are impatient and they're angry. Your answer is to call reform the enemy and promise patriotic renewal. What does that mean in brass tacks?
Well, patriotic renewal is fixing the problems in the country that we inherited, but changing the country as we do so. Let me just give you 2 or 3 practical examples. We've got to get the economy working. We've got to get wealth creation, but it needs to be everywhere across the country. And that is what I want to change. Not going back to economic growth that is in some parts of the country, but not all parts of the country. With the NHS, obviously, we need to fix it, but I want to do more than fix it. I want to make sure it's fit for the future. So that means bringing it closer to people, recognising the way in which disease and illness has changed, making sure we're using technology as we go forward. And the other thing is changing the relationship between the state and people. So last Thursday, we rolled out the Pride in Place funding. This is 10 years worth of funding to places which, in my view, have been overlooked for too long. But what's different is instead of those places having to come to Whitehall, cap in hand, asking for approval of what's needed in their place, we've said, you've got skin in the game, you've got a better idea what's going to work in your community, you make those decisions. So it's about renewing, but it's patriotic because it's about bringing the whole country with us. I love and have pride in my country, and I want to serve the whole of our country, our beautiful, tolerant, diverse country, and I want to serve the whole of that country. And I was arguing against reform because reform do not believe in that country. They want to tear that country apart. What was said last week about deporting migrants who are lawfully here, who've been here for years, working in our hospitals, in our schools, running businesses, our neighbours, and Reform say they want to deport them. That would tear our country apart.
Is that immoral
We
in
are
your
at the
view?
moment a leading member of the coalition of the willing, corralling and bringing together European countries to fight the aggression of Putin. Imagine if Reform came in and they were cozying up to Putin.
But
and
on
the
that policy
impact that would have,
specifically-
the impact that would have on our security and defence. And that's why I say to my party, and my main message to this conference is, this is a different fight. It is a fight about the future of our country, about who we are as what patriotism is and what we stand for in our place in the world.
But
And
for
it's,
many...
it's a fight we must be in, and it's a fight we must win. And I'm absolutely determined that we will.
But for many people, there has been concern about what's going on in this country because of immigration. And you yourself said on Friday that the left got it wrong on illegal immigration. When did you realise you'd got it wrong?
Well, I've thought for some time that the left have got it wrong because...
Well, when did you realise that?
I mean, soon after I was a politician, I went to Oldham and met a number of people there who wanted to tell me what their concerns were.
So what, more than 10 years ago, you thought
I've long thought that we've got this wrong, and we needed to understand what people's concerns are.
So what did you do about it then?
Well, we came into power 1 year ago. One of my frustration is I came into politics and I spent 9 years in opposition. That means 9 years voting and losing. We've had 1 year in power, and what we've done is take measures to improve law enforcement to tackle illegal migration. I want to strengthen the powers of those who enforce our borders, our law enforcement through the Borders Bill. Reform, and the Tories vote against that. We've struck a returns deal with France that means for the first time since we left the EU, because back in the days of the EU we could actually return to France and other countries. Now we can return to France. We're doing, we've done 35,000 returns since we've been in power, which is the highest number for nearly 10 years.
Have you ever been to see an asylum hotel?
Yes, I have seen an asylum hotel.
And what did you think when you went there? When you went to which community? Can you tell us where you went?
I want to reduce the number of people in asylum hotels. I want to empty those asylum hotels. I completely understand the frustration that people have in relation to the hotels. It frustrates me because what happened was we inherited tens of thousands of asylum claims which hadn't been processed by the last government. You have got to process them. So they then opened the hotels to put people into hotels. It's my job to empty it. So what I've done to do that is to ensure that we've got many more people processing claims. Where we process claims and people have found that they've got no right to be here, we're returning them to the country they came from more than ever before.
2029, which is more than 3 years
Yeah, I'd like to bring that forward. I'd like to bring that forward.
But will you commit to bringing that forward?
Well, we've got to process the claims. I'm looking at alternative accommodation and doing everything we can to bring that forward. I do understand the concern. But it was a problem when, if you leave tens of thousands of people and don't process their claims, they are in a place where they can't go backwards or forward. They can't be returned to the country they came from because they haven't been processed.
And you've talked about the long-term build-up of these problems.
Our job as ever is to fix the problems we inherited.
But what about what's happening right now? Because you have been in power now for 14 months. This is not, you haven't just walked through the door of number 10. Is it fair for asylum seekers to have taxis paid for them by the taxpayer to go to doctor's appointments, sometimes hundreds of miles away? Is that fair?
No, it isn't.
Will you stop it
happening.
immediately?
It shouldn't be happening.
And
it's not fair, and I understand that. We will stop it.
Immediately?
Well, as soon as we can, but we will stop it. It's not fair. I completely understand that. And it shouldn't be happening.
Is it fair for asylum seekers to be allowed to appeal more than once? Of course, the right of appeal is part of our justice system, but as things stand, asylum seekers can appeal more than once if they are told they have to leave the country.
Well, I want to look at the rights of appeal and see whether we can't improve that, because there are too many examples of, for example, people coming here on student visas, doing their studies, and at the end of that exercise, then claiming asylum. We've got, even in the last few weeks, when we've had the returns agreement up with France, when we've tried to return people, there are claims put in hours before the return, which could have been put in weeks before. So we need to look across the board. I think we need to look at every aspect of illegal migration, upstream, looking at the causes, which of course are often poverty, climate change, persecution, look at the causes, and as a global leader, see what we can do about that with other countries. Much more law enforcement, particularly with France on the northern border, processing those claims, returning people who shouldn't be here, looking across the appeal system to see whether we can't make it more effective and more efficient. All of that needs to be done, including introducing, as I announced this week, digital ID, so that we are clear in the principle that you cannot work in the United Kingdom if you do not have ID.
How many people?
Because too many people are able to get into the black economy and work illegally in this country, and we need to deal with that and deal with that effectively.
One of our viewers got in touch and wanted us to ask this question. Russ Brown wanted us to ask you if you really believe that those profiting from human trafficking will think, oh dear, I have to check your digital ID now. I can't carry on paying you £1.50 an hour to work in my sweatshop.
I'm absolutely convinced that amongst the reasons that people travel through France, which is a safe country, to come to the United Kingdom, amongst the reasons is because it's easier to work in our illegal economy than it is in other countries. And we have to deal with that.
Bosses who are prepared to hire people illegally are not asking them for their national insurance card. So what's the evidence? What makes you think they're suddenly going to ask them for a digital ID?
We need to be really clear. You must have ID, mandatory digital ID, in order to work, because we have to stop illegal working. If you look at any of the raids, we've massively increased the number of raids on working premises. It is absolutely clear that people are working illegally in numbers.
But why do you think that them having
acceptable.
a digital ID, having to have a digital ID, would stop that problem, when right now people are meant to have a national insurance number and card, and if they're not asked for that, a boss is willing already to break the rules? What's the difference going to be?
Well, the difference is this is on point of starting, not a retrospective exercise as it now is. It is an automatic collection of the information by the government, so we know exactly who is working in our economy, and it will help us enforce the rules that are there. But there's no point people saying to me, why do we need it, when we all acknowledge there is a problem. People are working illegally in our economy. It is amongst the reasons that people want to come to the United Kingdom. We have to deal with that. I made a pledge that we would do whatever was necessary, use whatever tools were available to deal with illegal migration. I intend to do so.
And you're presenting all of this in a sort of ideology, I suppose, an ideological point that you're making now, that we are in a new battle and that your party is up against an extreme party. You're sort of representing the mainstream as the extreme. You mentioned your grave concern about the reform policy, potentially to deport people who already live here. Do you think that's an immoral policy?
Yes, I do. And I think this is fundamental to who we are as a country. We are a proud, tolerant country, reasonable-minded, live and let live, and we are a diverse country where people have come here for centuries to this country to make up who we are. It is one thing to say we're going to remove illegal migrants, people who have no right to be here. I'm up for that. It is a completely different thing to say we are going to reach in to people who are lawfully here and start removing them. They are our neighbours. They're people who work in our economy. They are part of who we are. It will rip this country apart. And if you're patriotic, you want to serve the whole of your country, everybody in your country, and have an ability to bring that country together and walk forward towards the challenges. You cannot do that if you are divisive, if you only truly want to serve a section of our country. And that's why the fight with reform is different. Most elections have always been Labour or Conservative. This is a different election that we're facing. We have not had a proposition like reform in this country ever before. We've seen it in France and Germany and plenty of other countries. This is a different fight. It is a fight about who we are as a country. It goes to the soul of our future. It will be heard and the effects will be there for generations. And that's why I'm saying to my party, you know, it's all very well navel-gazing, but we've got a big argument to make here. We've got a big fight that we've got to be in, and we've got to win that fight.
You said that proposal is immoral, to deport people who are already here if they don't pass more stringent rules. Do you think it's a racist policy?
Well, I do think that it is a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
And do you think that Reform UK is trying to appeal to racists?
No, I think that there are plenty of people who either vote reform or are thinking of voting reform who are frustrated. They had 14 years of failure under the Conservatives. They want us to change things. They may have voted Labour a year ago, and they want the change to come more quickly. I actually do understand that, because if for 14 years your living standards haven't got any better and your public services have declined, then of course you want change.
But if for 14 months, Prime Minister, they've heard politicians and people in your government promise things and then they see so little change, they are looking for somewhere else. And if we look for one of the things that you are announcing at this conference, your proposal to build new towns, for example, you're promising to build a dozen new towns, but when you look in detail at the policy, the number of new towns you're saying there will be by 2029, 5 years after you won the election, it's 3. And even those 3 places might still not get built because they have to go through all sorts of checks. So people look at that and hear that and think, you're not getting anything done. It's too timid. There's no urgency.
Well, firstly, we've said we're going to build 1.5 million homes. And
and planning approvals for new homes are at a record low.
The towns are part of that. The planning applications reflect the position a year ago because it takes time to come through. But just hear me out on this. 1.5 million homes. And the reason for that is because the dream of home ownership, that base camp for aspiration, for opportunity, has been effectively snuffed out for young people. People now, on average, over 35 before they can afford to get their own home. That is unacceptable. That is a whole generation that have lost out.
And when you ask people in the sector...
the new towns are part of what we're doing in the 1.5 million. But look, the central charge you're putting to me is a really important one. I said before the election, it will take more than 12 months to turn around 14 years of failure. And it will take more than 12 months. It will take time. That's why we needed a 5-year mandate. But do I understand the frustration that people have? If you've lived through 14 years without your money in your pocket and your public going up, your public services being what they should be, then of course you want change more quickly. But I can't sit here today, nor did I say before the election, this can all be turned around on a flick of a switch. It's going to take time.
You didn't. You did say it would take time, but what you and your party did not expect was this precipitous fall off a cliff in terms of your popularity. Leaders can be popular in hard times, and you're admitting there are hard times still, but your popularity has taken such a knock, and the country's finances are incredibly tight. There's huge pressure on public money, a budget coming up. Will you rule out raising VAT?
Well, Laura, just on the first point of your question, if I may, I came into politics to change lives for the better, to change our NHS and make sure that it was fit for purpose, to win investment in for jobs across the country. We've got record investment coming in.
Will you rule out raising VAT to pay for that?
We've done massive exercise in Sizewell, where thousands of jobs now will be created as a result of that. The work we did with the US just a week ago on civil nuclear,
that's jobs in raising VAT to pay for the public services?
That is why I'm in politics, to change lives. It's not a popularity contest for me, it's about changing lives. On the question of the budget, obviously the budget will be in November, as you know, and I'm not going to sit here and set out what's going to be in the budget.
No, hang on,
you
Prime
know
Minister.
That isn't going to
on
happen.
Dozens and dozens and dozens of occasions, you ruled out raising VAT. It's in the solemn document of your party's manifesto. You're the Prime Minister of this country. Can you rule out raising VAT?
The manifesto stands.
So
we
you
made
rule out
commitments
raising
in
VAT?
that manifesto, and the manifesto stands.
And income
Obviously,
tax?
the details, the manifesto stands. We made those commitments. But
And they will not be unpicked?
The manifesto stands, Laura. It can't be clearer than that.
Well, you can. It's a different thing saying the manifesto stands right now, or are you saying actually it will stand in perpetuity? You're not going to unpick those promises?
Well, we put that manifesto before the electorate. We got elected, and that manifesto stands. I'm not going to go through the details of what may be in the budget. Obviously, it's 2 months away, and no Prime Minister and no Chancellor would ever sit here and indicate 2 months out what may or may not be in the budget. But the manifesto stands.
Well, hang on. Can you be crystal clear there? Because you're saying the manifesto stands right now, but I'm not going to talk about the budget. This is something you've ruled out dozens and dozens and dozens of times. You're ruling it out clearly right now.
The manifesto stands. We made those commitments. We stand by those commitments.
There's another issue that many people are worried about, which is special needs education for children, because the government's reviewing how it's provided. The system has had many problems over the years, so we don't need to outline the problems over the years. But would you rule out scrapping the legal right for children who need help with special needs at school?
Well, I don't want to take away rights, but we do need to reform this system.
So you might scrap that legal right?
Well, I'm not indicating that in the slightest, because we're looking at various options. What I'm doing is looking at the broad principles. As it stands, special educational needs doesn't work well for most people. Just hear me out, Laura, because at PMQs, Prime Minister's Questions, every Wednesday at 12 o'clock, the issue on which I've had more questions from across the House, so from Tories, from Lib Dem, and from my own side, the issue that's come up more than anything is special educational needs. And it is always MPs raising a concern in their constituency about the way in which special educational needs works at the moment. So we've got to look at that, and we've got to improve it. Now, we haven't come to final decisions on that, and therefore I'm not in a position to lay out the proposals to you. We will do in due course. But I'm absolutely clear in my mind the current system isn't working. And I think pretty well across the House people accept that. We need to change it. I've actually issued an invitation to other parties to work with us on this, because it's going to matter not just for the next year or 2 or 3, but for many years to come, and so we need to get it right.
I know many parents and charities will be listening to the details of your answer very closely there. And before we move on, I just want to clarify something for the record. There's more detail in reporting from the Sunday Times today about a piece of land you bought for your parents many years ago. Did you put it into a trust?
No, I didn't. I bought a field for my mum and my dad because they loved donkeys, and my mum was very ill and she couldn't move around anymore. She, by the end of her life, had her leg amputated and she could barely communicate. She was very, very ill. She loved her donkeys, and I wanted her to be able to see her donkeys. I was a lawyer, I had quite a lot of money. I bought a field for £20,000 at the back of their house, and I said, here's your field, it's yours for as long as you may live, you could put your donkeys in it. I didn't create a trust, I simply bought a field, and I said to Mum and Dad, This is for you.
Okay.
It was, and also, by the way, Laura, it was £20,000. We're not looking at a vast estate with great tax.
It's a lot of money to many people, and you sold it many years later for more
It is a
than
lot of money, but the idea of setting up some complicated trust for a £20,000 agricultural field, which then housed 4 donkeys for all the time my mum and dad. It was so, my mum, she was able, where they had a little outhouse at the edge of the field, and she was able, in the end, to see the donkeys, and my dad built a little sort of porchway so he could wheel the wheelchair out so she could touch the donkeys. That's what it was for, and I gave it to them.
And
I had enough money at the time because I was a lawyer. It was a gift to my mum and dad.
And that's now on the record. You did not put it in trust, and that's not been on the record before, and that is now on the record. What's Andy Burnham up to?
Well, he's doing a very good job as the Mayor of Manchester, and I work very closely with him, as I do with all the mayors. One of the things we've changed is the way government and mayors work, because mayors very much felt shut out by the last government. We now work with them, and I think Andy would be the first to accept that.
He's
so
also
I
been
work
the
with
first
him.
to say, but not the only person to say, that there are issues with your leadership. His colleague in London, Sadiq Khan, said he'd been raising legitimate concerns. And the point about this is that although I know it's awkward for you to talk about leadership, if you don't have the 100% confidence of your party, you can't get the things done that you want to do.
Comments about leaders and leadership are part and parcel of being in politics. It is the bread and butter of politics. Every leader gets it. It always comes out, particularly at conference. It's in the job description. I don't focus on that. I focus on what have we got to get done? What are we able to achieve? I focus on how can we drive... 2 million extra appointments for the NHS is what we promised. We've delivered 5 million. I'm really pleased and proud of that. We've won contracts for jobs, the like of which we haven't seen for years. I'm really proud of that.
Think about what's happened in Parliament. You've had to ditch some of your big plans because you couldn't carry your party with you. Think about why some people in your party are desperately worried about what's going on, because you have been miles behind in the polls for month after month after month. I've spoken to a lot of people in the Labour Party in the last few months about this, and there is wide and deep concern about the way in which you're doing your job. Is it wise to stick your fingers in and say, "Pah, leadership's just what happens"?
No, look, people are entitled to their views, and I'm not sticking my fingers in my ear in the slightest. What I am saying is that it is important to keep focusing what it is that we are delivering and saying absolutely in clear terms the difference it makes to people's lives. That Hillsborough law means that thousands of people, whether it's the 97 or Grenfell or Windrush or Horizon or Infected Blood and all the other scandals, will have a degree of justice, but other people will never have to go through that again.
But
that is going to change lives.
Prime Minister,
the jobs in the Clyde for 15 years are going to change lives.
But Prime Minister, if people in your party and the public, which we can see through the polls, look at that list and look at you and think, we don't have much faith in that. We don't have that much faith in what this man is doing on our behalf. What if, Prime Minister, the problem is you?
Well, Laura, I will be judged at the next election on 3 things, I think, more than anything else. 1, have we improved living standards? Do people genuinely feel better off? 2, have we improved public services? Is the NHS in a better place and people can feel it? And 3, do people feel safe and secure in their home, in their neighbourhood, and that their country is secure? And I'm very happy and will be judged, rightly judged, in that way. We won a mandate, a considerable mandate. I led the party into that mandate. It's a 5-year mandate, and I'll be judged at the end of that 5 years, and quite right too. But I just need the space to get on and do what we need to do those 3 things above all else, but also in a world which is more volatile than any of us have known for a very long time, to ensure that the United Kingdom is safe and secure, which is why we're doing all the work we are on the Coalition of the Willing, making sure that on defence and security we are seen once again as a leading nation.
One of your Labour predecessors, when he was having a bit of bother, Harold Wilson, when asked what was going on with his leadership, he said, "I tell you what's going on, this government's going on and I'm going on." And John Major said to his critics, "Put up or shut up." What's Keir Starmer saying? Give me time, give me space?
I'm saying we have got the fight of our lives ahead of us, because we've got to take on reform, we've got to beat them. And so now is not the time for introspection or navel gazing. There is a fight that we are all in together, and every single member of our party and our movement, actually everyone who cares about what this country is, whether they vote Labour or otherwise. It's the fight of our lives for who we are as a country. We need to be in that fight, united, not navel-gazing. I'm absolutely clear in my mind about that, and that's what I'm going to be talking about at the conference.
Prime Minister, thanks very much indeed for coming in to talk to everybody watching this morning. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Fight of our lives, he claims. I'll take this off for a bit, I don't need it for a bit. I make you listen and watch because I listen and watch and then I critique it. And I don't like him. I agree with so many of you. I think he talks a load of shit. I think he's a liar. I think he's lied to all of us. He's gaslit us. He's demonised us as far right and racist. But you need to listen to what he's got to say, to deconstruct it, to educate yourselves, to understand what they're doing, because you need to understand this. What they're doing is trying to manoeuvre us into a position where we behave and act in a certain way, so they can then point at us and then use us as an example to the rest of the country, because the rest of the country aren't politically active and opinionated like we are, not in the levels that we are. And what then happens is they manipulate us and play us. And we need to understand what's going on. It's as simple as that. We need to understand what's going on. So, and I think it's useful. That is the Prime Minister. Whatever we think, that is the Prime Minister. And to beat him, we have to dismantle him. And I'm glad my friend Evan got to drink a full bottle of wine whilst listening. So you can see, Keir Starmer has come out swinging, calling Nigel Farage's plan on indefinite leave to remain racist. And I think you'll notice it was the BBC journalist who introduced the word racist. But he didn't go far enough when she asked him, is reform appealing to racists? He said no. He didn't go that far. Is reform appealing to racists? He said no. What he admitted to is reform is appealing to grievance, legitimate grievance. That's buried in the small print. But he did pick up on Nigel Farage's plan, reform's plan, on indefinite leave to remain, completely, misinterpreted it and called it racist, divisive. And Labour MPs are lining up behind him. They're all desperate to prove that they're tougher on reform than reform are on themselves. But in any of that, did you hear a single solution? There's 20 minutes, apart from digital IDs, which actually isn't a solution. Did you hear a single solution? They're not engaging in debate. They're not even trying to win hearts and minds. You've seen 2.5 million signatures there. The strategy is exactly what I've titled this live stream: smear, sneer, and fear. So if you dare to disagree with them, you're a racist. If you question them, you're far right. And if you won't vote Labour, well, you're part of some dangerous threat to democracy. It was including Ukraine and Putin in all of this. So let's look at the smear bit, because we all know about smears, aren't we? Labour are of course misrepresenting reform's indefinite leave to remain proposals as mass deportations to terrify people and delegitimise reform supporters, reform voters. I've witnessed it firsthand. I've knocked on doors campaigning for my friends in reform. And I've had conversations first hand with people who believe this shit, that reform is racist. So we need to learn how to counter this. We do. And we're all far right and we're all racist now doesn't wash. Because the far right is real and racism is real. You know racism is real. The gang rape of white working class girls by Pakistani men were racially motivated crimes. So the next time one of you wants to put up that dictionary definition of racism as though it's some sort of joke, don't. It's what they want. We know it's real. And that's what I'm saying to you, Chloe. This is a smear in terms of the reforms proposals. It's a smear towards them. Indefinite leave to remain is a legal status. It allows people who've lived and contributed here for years to settle permanently. Reform, all Reform have said is that they want to tighten the rules going forward. That's a debate about the future. Who gets indefinite leave to remain in the years to come? It's a perfectly legitimate discussion to have. You can agree or disagree with it, but it's a debate worth having, and that debate in itself is not racist. What Labour have done here is twist it into something else. They are screaming that Reform wants to deport millions of people. Your doctors, your nurses, yeah, you've heard him. People who are already legally here, settled here. Entire families ripped apart, neighbours bundled onto planes. You get the impression? Yeah. It's absolute nonsense. And she never challenged him. It's absolute nonsense. So the BBC are facilitators in this. You've got to understand. It's absolute nonsense. It's scaremongering. And it's a deliberate smear. Everyone knows you couldn't and wouldn't deport millions of people who are legally part of this country. But Labour don't care. The facts don't matter. What matters is creating fear, painting Reform as monsters, and here's the bit you need to understand, branding anyone who even listens to Reform as racist too. That is the game plan. So when you say you're concerned about immigration, when you say you're concerned about the grooming gangs, when you say Reform or Advance or any of them might be speaking to your experiences, your lived experiences, Labour's answer has never been to debate with you. Labour's answer has never been to listen to you. Labour's answer has always been the same: to smear you, to tie you with the same brush as the real racists and the real far right. It's the oldest trick in the book. If you can't win the argument, demonise your opponent. Labour talk like Reform wants to send vans, snatch vans, into every neighbourhood and start kicking doors down. It's not a policy debate. It's a Netflix apocalypse script written in Labour Party headquarters, and the BBC amplified it. Exactly, Gary. It's to fear monger people. That is what the reaction should have been. And then, after smear, we get sneer. Boy, do we know all about sneer. The contempt, the Labour elite sneering at working class communities. Do we know that feeling? Dismissing our concerns as ignorant, bigoted and far right. Labour's smear campaign goes hand in hand with the contempt they show for ordinary people. Time and again, when communities raise concerns about immigration, housing, grooming gangs, pressure on the NHS, can't get a place for your child at school, Labour's response is not to listen, it is to sneer. You've seen it before. This isn't just a Labour response, it's actually a metropolitan elite response. It's the same with the ID cards. Remember Brexit voters? Racist. Parents who complain about immigration in schools? Bigoted. Towns like mine, Oldham, Rotherham, Rochdale, far right. Cesspits. Labour politicians and their media friends sit in TV studios and sneer at the very people. I can't remember when they last represented us. Can you? They don't talk to people. Starmer talked about coming to Oldham 10 years ago. No, they don't talk to people. They talk about people. Always with that same sneering tone. Those poor, backwards people who don't understand modern Britain. Did you not get that sense oozing from him? Those poor, backward people who don't understand modern Britain. What did he say? Tolerant. Diverse. We don't understand it. But the reality is this. It's these very people, the working classes, who not just created the Labour Party, but they built modern Britain. And the Labour Party has abandoned us. That is why, and he admits it, in many ways, so many people have looked towards reform. If you wanted to sit down with me, for those of you who don't support reform, and say, what's Ben Habib's party called, or Nick Tenconi's UKIP, what about this, what about... I could have a conversation with you where by the time you and I are finished, I could have a list just as extensive, if not more so, with criticisms of reform. But what is taking place here is not criticising reform. What they want to do is brand anyone that supports them as racist and far right. There's a subtle but specific, distinct and important distinction. They sneer. The sneer is worse than the smear because it exposes the contempt at the heart of Labour. I'll say that again so you understand it. The smear is worse than the sneer. The sneer is worse than the smear because it exposes the contempt at the heart of Labour. They don't trust ordinary people. They definitely don't respect any of us. And does anyone believe they represent us? Oh yeah, I can just buy a field at the back of my house for £20,000 and then sell it. What did he sell it for? She didn't ask him, did she? I'm reading reports of 300,000. If you're worried about immigration, if you're worried about people taking advantage of our country and taking resources away from the rest of us who belong here, well, Labour think you're basically one tweet away from joining the BNP. It's the oat milk lattes whilst they're sneering at the people who built this country. And that entire interview oozed that. So you've got smear, you've got sneer. And being the playing of words that I am, you've also got fear. Oh, I'm glad you got to meet Richard. I have time for Richard. You've got fear. Labour rule by fear. And I'll show you an example of this. You're not hearing it from me. I want you to hear it from Andy Burnham. Remember, I hold him in complete contempt. But this, they're doing this to the rest of us outside. What do you think is taking place actually inside the Labour Party? It's absolutely brilliant, by the way, as far as I'm concerned. I want you to listen to this. I have to put my headphones back on. Just give me 1 second.
I am worried about, and I think we do need to debate at this conference, in my view, is how can you have an open debate about all of those things if there's too much of a climate of fear within our party and the way the party is being run? How do you get an open debate about the direction that we need to take to reconnect with the public if a party member is suspended for liking a tweet by another political party, or a member of parliament loses the whip for trying to protect disability benefits or the two-child cap? You know, how do you get to that point if that is the way we're doing things, where debate is being closed down?
So even Andy Burnham is making reference to a climate of fear within the Labour Party. They're doing it even amongst themselves, with each other. It's the ultimate weapon in Labour's arsenal. It always has been. The Labour Party doesn't inspire. Do you think it's inspiring you? The Labour Party doesn't lead. And definitely, this Labour Party doesn't give people hope. So what do they do instead? They try to scare you. The Prime Minister is essentially telling us a political party that wiped the floor in the May Council elections are extremists. He's telling us, in no uncertain terms, that reform is dangerous. And that if you support reform, you are supporting chaos. And if you don't vote Labour, the world will fall apart. The Russians will get us at the very least. Come on, people. We've seen this before. We've seen Project Fear during Brexit. We've seen Project Fear during every major debate. We've seen Project Fear now if they don't bring in the identity cards. France has identity cards. It's made no difference to the illegal immigrants there, has it? No. Fear campaigns backfire. They insult people's intelligence. They assume voters can be scared into obedience. But look up to you here now. So many of us, over 2.5 million, I think it's getting up to, that petition. People are waking up to the game. The boy who cried wolf has become the party who cried racist. And I don't believe anyone is listening anymore. Do you? All of Labour's smears, sneers and fear tactics are blowing up in their faces. Every time they brand millions of decent people as racist, more people turn away. Every time they sneer at working class towns, those towns stop voting for them. And every time they try to scare people, those people realise Labour has no vision to offer. It's happening already. The reason he's picked on Reform at his first, his main first party conference essentially, at the end of his first year, meant to be a honeymoon period, is that all the polls are showing he's the worst Prime Minister ever. And if there was an election next week, Reform would wipe the floor. And that isn't some obscure polling company. It's the YouGovs and the Ipsos polls. It's the main ones. Reform are climbing in the polls despite Labour's media friends going into full meltdown mode. Labour think they're fighting Reform, but really they're fighting the people. And you don't win elections by fighting the people. I don't know if you've seen it, if you follow any of the conferences, what's happened in the Labour machinery is that the great and the good, the people actually knew what they're doing. They're not there anymore. There's an entire generation of careerists. Those who've been to Oxford, Cambridge, done PPE degrees, they've got absolutely no idea of what's going on. And that's why this is their strategy. So this is where we land. Labour's answer to Reform isn't policy, it isn't a vision, it isn't leadership. It's smear, sneer and fear. They smear Reform and the millions of people who agree with them. They sneer at working class communities they abandoned, and they try to rule through fear inside the party and with the rest of us. And that's what the ID cards is about. Because they've got nothing else left. You deserve better, I deserve better, every one of us deserves better. We deserve leaders who actually listen instead of smearing us, leaders who respect us instead of sneering at us. And this is the one for me. Leaders who inspire hope instead of peddling fear. Leaders who inspire hope instead of peddling fear. So please, you need to listen to what the Prime Minister says, because you need to be able to dismantle it and understand what is taking place. This isn't about a fight against Reform. It's a fight against you and me and the rest of us. This is a government at war with its people. And yes, Katie, you want to vote Advance UK, go and vote Advance UK. This space I host on a Sunday, I am not going to get into those petty squabbles. It'd help if Advance UK first of all got itself registered and maybe have a candidate. It's not easy. You'll see. You'll see. It's not easy. And I'm not going to get involved in that either, Debbie. I've spoken to Ben. People fall out with each other all the time in terms of politicians. I think Ben Habib's a leader. I think Nigel Farage is a leader. And I think Rupert Lowe is a leader. And I think because they're big leaders with big views and opinions is why the fallout happened. And my own views, I've said it once, I'll say it now, and I no doubt I'll say it many times to follow. It is not helpful to any of us that there are three factions. It's not helpful to any of us. Now, I want to move on to something to do with Andy Burnham. But before I do, a few of you have contacted me and asked me about the how last week ended, and as you've seen today, it's a bit more light-hearted for me. I've not gone into the grooming gangs and the rape gangs thing. The Charlotte Tetley case, I'm afraid it affected me. Because I understand the gravity of what's took place. I released a video this morning from Rochdale. I'd gone to Rochdale during the week. I've written something and I'll try and share that tomorrow, and I'll also maybe try and host what I've written and read it and have a Q&A or something on it. And I just wanted to have a break, I think, for a week on other issues that are just as relevant for us. And I'll go back next week to the rape gangs. I've got so much more. I'm also being asked to speak at events, and also being asked why I'm not speaking at events. So I'll make my position clear yet again. I say yes to as many people as I can. I'm in London on Wednesday. I'm speaking at an event in London, in Victoria on Wednesday. I'll travel down now on Wednesday morning at my own expense. The event isn't until night time. I've checked the train times. I won't make the last train back. So I'll have to either catch a overnight coach back, which I'd rather not, or I'd have to fork out for a hotel. So I'll do that, and I'll catch the train back on the Thursday, with a view of being back in time, because I have my daughter on a Thursday trying to do school pickup and stuff. So I think what I'm trying to share with you is wherever I'm invited, I try and say yes and try and find a way of getting there and getting back at my own expense, so there's never an issue for whoever's doing the inviting. I think Cian's here and Ryan's here from Wells. They'll confirm I travelled 5.5 hours to get there, and another 5 hours back to speak in a room with maybe a few more people. It's fine. I have no issue. I want to do that. There are conferences taking place. I think there was one scheduled in Manchester on Saturday. I didn't go because it got cancelled. The venue pulled on them. It was the New Culture Forum, and I was scheduled to speak. I'd prepared a presentation, a workshop, I'd done all of that, and unfortunately Philip from the New Culture Forum contacted me, upset. The venue had pulled on him. You can go and find an interview with the New Culture, Philip from the New Culture Forum, and Nick Buckley, I think, released something, because Nick was supposed to speak as well. And you'll see. Now, what happened there? There's another conference, I think, on rape gangs and survivors taking place, and I've not had an invite. Now, you've got to understand that there are politics at play here. Whether you like it or not, there's a lot of politics at play here. There's a lot of egos here. There's a lot of people who want to be relevant. I'm not interested. If I get invited, I'll go. If I don't get invited, I'm not going to beg to get invited. It's fine. Best of luck, and I'm sure it'll be of value. And good luck to them. But please, don't take it in a way that somehow I have refused to take part, because I haven't. So, that's where we are with that. That's the one, isn't it, Adrian? Yeah. That cancelled on the Knee Culture Forum. My friend Billy from Rochdale contacted me yesterday or the day before, and I don't like them anymore, if I'm honest with you. He's organising a protest on the Saturday the 18th of October. It's the 18th Saturday, and thank you so much, Melanie, is organising a protest on the 18th in Rochdale, and it will be to do with Charlotte Tetley. I'm sure it'll be to do with Charlotte Tetley. And he sent me a message, and he knows I don't like them anymore. I'll tell you why I don't like them. There's 3 reasons for me. One is people have advance notice of where I am attending. It's purely a personal safety thing, and if it's on the street, then they have advance notice of me attending. It means that those who can attack me have an opportunity to do so. So that's the first reason why I don't like them. The second reason is that when I go and speak at these events, and I do go and speak at these events, and I have done, and the last one was in central Manchester, the Antifa lot turn up and they target me. And they target me specifically because of my ethnicity, my religion, because I give credence to the issue in a way that very few other people do. So they want me out of the way. If I'm stood with you, it's hard to call you lot a racist or Nazis. So they shout Nazi at me. So that's... I struggle with it, I'll be honest with you. I struggle with being shouted and screamed at and being called a Nazi. And then I think the third and final reason is, if I'm selfish, Saturdays is usually a time I spend with my daughter. It's the one day of the week I actually get with her. But I've had a chat with her this morning. She was with me this morning, went to play badminton, and I had a chat with her. I explained to a 10-year-old as best a 10-year-old. So on the 18th, I will be speaking for Billy in Rochdale. So, please, I would love you to travel there. If they've cancelled us at a venue with the New Culture Forum, they've cancelled us. If you're not from London and you can't get to London, or you're not from some of the Reform branches who are contacting me, and I'm trying to schedule as many in as possible, please come to Rochdale on the 18th of October. There'll be survivors there, as there always is. There'll be decent people like Billy there who've been doing this far longer than I have, and I have nothing but admiration for these people. And I will speak. And what I've found in the value of these things, and historically I'm not a fan, but I go over, and the value is when people come together and they meet each other in real life and they have those conversations. For me, it feeds my soul. It gives me something. Purpose, meaning. It gives me something to take away. So please, if you can, get there. And you know, guys, this stuff, it's not for here. I have no time for the Palestinians and the other side that wave Israeli flags and one side waves Palestinian flags at each day. It's not me. If you want to do that, go and do that somewhere else. It's not from this place. I have joined the Free Speech Union. I know from a very past life, I know Toby Young. I did a stint for his father's foundation, the Young Foundation, in a previous life. So I was very pleased when Toby Young reflected on where he was and went away and set up the Free Speech Union. He's now Lord Young, isn't he? So, you know, I have time for Toby, and the work of the Free Speech Union I amplify as much as I can, because they are doing extremely valuable work, and I think their work will be more and more required as we move forward. Okay, let me bring something up. It says him. What am I looking for? So, I'm going to have to find this story because it's disappeared off my... it's behind the paywall, but so I pay via Apple, so I can read all the stories, so I'll bring this story up. But this is a story I need to put into context first. There's a guy called Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester Mayor, King of the North, yeah? And he's been using taxpayers' cash, your money, to give to loans. Nothing unlawful, nothing strictly unlawful, because someone took him to court and they found the GMCA said, oh yeah, we've done nothing illegal, we were found to be doing nothing illegal. I don't want to talk about what's illegal. I want to talk to you about what's right and wrong. What he's been doing, or what the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, of which the Mayor leads, has been doing, is that they've been awarded £800 million, give or take, to a firm called Renica in Manchester. And Renica are in the business of luxury apartments. They're a property developer, and they've been building all these skyscrapers. They get the best plots, and the money is meant to come with caveats. You know, affordable homes, all of that sort of stuff. Money diverted to good causes. None of that has been taking place. So the Telegraph ran with this story, and there was a little story in the Financial Times and even in the Manchester Evening News, but not much. They've managed it, and as I've spent time on this, it's very clear that the same machinery, the same journalists, there's a, you know, like if the Home Office has been compromised, which is what I believe, by the way, it's been infiltrated. Well, then the legacy media, you know, there's a whole host of people who have got very, very strong links with Andy Burnham. He runs a very, very effective media narrative, and it's only possible with partners in the mainstream media. That's why he is looked on the way he is. So, even this story had very minimal impact on the Telegraph, and then one of the people who'd done all the research contacted me a couple of days ago and said, Roger, there's something that's meant to be coming out on the Sunday Mail on Sunday. It's to do with Andy Burnham, and we're not going to get the, even though we've got it this far, we're not going to get the story out. You know, people aren't going to pick up on it. Is there anything you can do to help? Which is why I ran with the story I did this morning. Now, this is the extract from the Mail on Sunday, just a little bit, and I'll read it to you. Andy Burnham was last night facing questions over claims he gambled with taxpayers' money by funneling hundreds of thousands of pounds of loans, well, actually more than hundreds of thousands, yeah, to one skyscraper tycoon. The Mail on Sunday can reveal that the Greater Manchester Mayor oversaw, so that's him directly, oversaw nearly £600 million given to bankroll flats in the city centre, despite apparently not knowing who was ultimately behind the project. Documents show Mr. Burnham nodded through the loans to Darren Whittaker, which ran way above guidelines, stating that a single developer should not receive more than 30% of the local authority funding pot. Through several loans, and I'm reading this word for word because I'm being careful. Yeah. Through several loans, Mr. Whittaker received 70% of it. Freedom of information requests show this breach was noted but ignored by the government because of information provided by Mr. Burnham, which has not been made public. Do you see what's happened here? It's the Mail on Sunday. £600 million to bankroll flats. A tycoon's name from Renica is Darren Whittaker. Freedom of information requests were needed to extract that information. £600 fucking million. And the rules were that no one developer gets more than 30%, and this guy's got 70%. And the breach has been noted, but the government, the Labour government, have ignored it because of information provided by Mr. Burnham, which has not been made public. A total of, this is where I got the £800 million. It's more actually, read it here. A total of 575 million of the 860 million borrowed by Mr. Whittaker's Renica Group, so 860 million they've had, was from the government-backed Greater Manchester Housing Investment Fund. £860 million. Court transcripts and lending agreements seen by the Mail on Sunday reveal it was not checked who ultimately benefited from the vast sums. £860 million, and it was not checked who ultimately benefited from the vast sums. I don't know what else to say, mate. It's not making the news or anything. Small print here, an article there. Analysis of accounts shows some of Mr. Whittaker's companies, because he's obviously got a range of companies, are funded by loans traced to a separate Isle of Man company, which is controlled by another company based in the British Virgin Islands, run by a Bulgarian lawyer. I'll read that again. Analysis of accounts shows some of Mr. Whittaker's companies are funded by loans traced to a separate Isle of Man company, which is controlled by another company based in the British Virgin Islands, run by a Bulgarian lawyer. Like, what the fuck is going on? What is going on? It beggars belief Burnham lent this without really knowing who he's got into bed with, said a Manchester Property Insider. A Greater Manchester Combined Authority spokesman, unnamed, said, "A case was brought to the Competition Appeals Tribunal regarding our Housing Investment Loans Fund and we won on every count. The judgment debunked the false idea of a cosy relationship with developers. No, it didn't. If you've given £860 million to a developer whose company is then has another company in the Isle of Man and has another company on the British Virgin Islands, come on. Now, throughout the day, I've been getting messages from people I don't know. All to do with this story. All to do with this story. And it ran in the Telegraph as well. I'll bring up the Telegraph article. And they went to the Financial Times, which you'd have thought would normally run with sort of this. And they got a cold shoulder. A water poured all over it. I'm like, what happened there? They gave me the name of a journalist that they went to at the Financial Times. Does anyone remember a woman called Jennifer Williams? Wrote a whole host of lies about me on behest of the Labour Party. Used to work at the Manchester Evening News. Warren Bates and Hughie MacDonald told me specifically they'd gone to her when she was at the Manchester Evening News with the rape gang information that I released, and she, wouldn't do. Well, here we have Jennifer Williams now is at the Financial Times. Running what? Cover for Burnham? Yeah. This is the article in the Telegraph. How Burnham used taxpayer cash to fill Manchester with luxury skyscrapers. Now, it's a very long article, so I won't read it to you. But I'll give you some headlines. Manchester Combined Authority handed out the company 800 million in loans since 2016. Apparently Reniker is regenerating the area and bringing growth to Manchester. However, questions have been raised whether Manchester really needs luxury skyscrapers given the flats in them are being brought up by Asian investors. Do you know what's happening? So, a private property developer is getting loans, I would imagine on preferential interest rates, to build apartments. These apartments are being bought up floors at a time by foreign investors. Yeah. And these are the developments you can see. So Reniker has built thousands of property, making progress towards his target of 75,000 homes by the end of the decade. Now, if these 75,000 homes sit empty, these flats where foreign investors have just built and left them empty, how is that addressing our shortage? Yeah, lots of Chinese, lots of Arabs, lots of money coming in from places that we would question the human rights records on. Last year, and I'll read this line because I found it hilarious when I read it, Manchester Council approved a £300 million 71-storey Reniker Tower in Deansgate with 624 flats, a swimming pool, sauna and top floor restaurant. Is that what that money was ever set up for? Is that what it was ever set up for? Oh, Jennifer Williams did much more than pick up Burnham from train stations and take him to events. But that, as they say, Denise, is a story for a different time, I think. The Telegraph has previously reported, so this isn't Raja Mir making any of this up, this is the Telegraph, has previously reported that hundreds of flats in 2 taxpayer-backed skyscrapers built by Reniker using public funds have been sold to Asian investors rather than locals. It gets worse in terms of the small print of what's going on. Last month, Reniker came to an agreement with Manchester City Council to pay £114 million towards affordable housing elsewhere in the city. So part of the contracts meant that they had to give money back towards affordable housing. So okay, we're building these flats. We know people who, who on modest salaries aren't going to be able to afford any of these. From the profits, we're going to give £140 million back towards affordable housing elsewhere in the city. It was an arrangement to progress the deal on its 5 towers development. However, the company may never end up paying the full amount. They may never end up paying a single penny, is the truth. The council agreed with the company, but viability issues prevented it from paying the sum at the moment, with officials instead pledging to reassess the feasibility of making such payments at a later date. Let me park that and do it in my own way. Of course, I make no allegations when I do this. It's just me being mocking. Hey up, Roger. I want to build a skyscraper. It's going to cost me £300 million. Oh, we have a special fund here. Would you like some of it? Oh, you're just going to give it me, are you? I'm doing my Pakistani gangster bit here. Yeah, bro. I just need an envelope or 2 in it. Maybe a chicken shop handout. Maybe something transpires there and the loan passes on. Oh, we've got to agree something because the council are on our back. They'll want you to give £100 million to us, some affordable housing thing. Oh yeah, I can sign that. Can you make it go away afterwards? Of course I can make it go away afterwards. It's a fucking cesspit, isn't it? It's a cesspit. Every document should be released. This is a man who wants to be Prime Minister, by the way. And this is separate to the rape gang scandal that I have him pinned in the corner on. What the Mail on Sunday have released and what the Telegraph have released is something. It's... Well, if it's not that, what is it? If it's not a racket, what is it? And then you hear about which companies behind the digital IDs will benefit from them. The ULEZ scheme. And I think to myself, the reason why the Pakistani cartels have got away with it is because the people on top of them are involved in their own cartels. What do you say? What do you say to this? I'll tell you what you say to this. I've got one more thing to share with you, just to laugh your head off over. He says, the Labour mayor sought visas for Bangladeshi family and friends. Mohammed Amirul Islam is being investigated over abuse of office and bringing council into disrepute. You need to read the story. So this guy, whilst there was the mayor in some London borough, is sending letters off with the official crest to try and get family members and mates over. And of course, they're trying to protect him. Whilst Burnham is handing out £800 million in loans. Oh, how small time. How small time. Oh. Okay. So, I am off to London on Wednesday. If you're there, come and say hello. If not, pencil in the 18th, Saturday the 18th, get to Rochdale. It'll make a massive difference. I know Billy will appreciate it. And if you can, if you find value in my work, please support me. If someone posted something earlier today on X and then sent me some messages, they were nasty. The reality is I put all my content out for free. I don't charge anything, and I leave it up to the goodwill of people to support me so I can keep myself going, so I can continue to do the work that I do. I don't think it's very complicated. I'm not Keir Starmer with 20,000 just to buy a field. So if you find value in my work, please sign up to Redwall and the Rabble or consider buying me a coffee. And I will see you all very, very soon. Good night.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011, he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.